aspiring professional athlete of any sport, it's very important to keep the grand scheme of your future in perspective. As for even the best players, sports just don't last forever. That kind of mindset is especially necessary for NFL prospects. With football being one of the most dangerous sports there is, your playing career could be over with just one play in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's where backup plans come into play. College degrees, career opportunities outside of the league, any kind of foundation in place just so you aren't out on the street if you find yourself off of an NFL roster. For the vast majority of college football players, that backup plan becomes their actual career. And for Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen, that was very nearly his own reality, with arrangements already made to set his dreams aside and pursue something a little bit more feasible than pro football. But because of the fact that he was never given a chance to showcase his talent at any level of the game, he decided to take matters into his own hands, and his life would change forever because of it. So this is the story of how one kid from Minnesota built his name up from nothing to become one of the best receivers in the NFL. All Adam Thielen knew and loved was Vikings football. He'd sit and watch Chris Carter and Randy Moss put on clinics week after week, and then he'd go outside and drive the sideline bench in his backyard, imagining the crowd going wild as he called in the game-winning score. But when he got to high school, he wasn't so sure football was his gig, as he excelled in golf, football, and basketball. After graduating, he didn't care much where he ended up going to college, so long as it allowed him to continue playing sports, and had settled on the plan of playing basketball at a Division III school nearby. When it came to football, no one was really interested, despite the fact that he'd earned all-conference and all-state honors in his senior season at Detroit Lakes High. That is, until one coach called. The Minnesota State Mankato Mavericks, a D2 program, weren't necessarily about to bring him a full ride to play for their team, but they did offer him $500. Even though that amount wasn't even going to cover the cost of his books, Thielen took the offer, as it was the only 20% scholarship he was ever going to get. Playing with the Mavericks, Thielen's talent shined, but only if you were a fan of Minnesota State. To be fair, he wasn't necessarily focused on trying to get pro-level attention either. He was just happy to be playing the game he loved. Occasionally, he'd attend Vikings training camp, which was held in Mankato, and he'd take back things he learned from wide receivers there to improve his skill set further. It wasn't until Thielen's senior year that he'd even really considered the NFL, as in his final college season, he'd put up 1,100 yards and 8 scores through 14 games, coupled with some solid numbers returning kicks and punts. By the time it was all over, Thielen had never once had an NFL scout in attendance for any games or practices in his senior year, so an invite to the NFL Combine was already out of the question. At a small school like Mankato, there was no pro day, so he decided he was going to give the NFL one last shot and pay his own money to try and get some eyes on his belt. He ponied up $275 in order to secure a spot at a regional combine in Chicago, which is essentially just a place to record times and get measured. There's no actual scouts or in attendance. He wanted to go and showcase his abilities there, because while his coaches in college believed he was fast for D2 football, they didn't believe he had the speed or measurables to make it at the next level. So he started training hard every single day to prove them wrong. Thielen thought that at the very least he'd never get a call from any of the teams at this event, but he didn't want to live knowing that he passed up an opportunity to chase his dream. So he went, and he ran his first ever recorded 40-yard dash at 4.45, the one piece that he felt was critical to getting any real attention from pro scouts, since he knew he had the hands and route running skill he needed to have a shot. His plan worked too, and after being invited to the Super Regional Combine and performing well with actual scouts in attendance, things were looking up for Thielen. Then draft day came without being picked, and that was expected. But what wasn't was that the period to sign as an undrafted free agent came and went without a phone call, and soon enough, Thielen was left with only 2 invites to team rookie camps, one of them from the Carolina Panthers, and the other from the Minnesota Vikings. But before he was able to fully dedicate his life to training up for this opportunity, Thielen had something else to prepare for, an internship interview. See, Adam had just gotten out of college without knowing what his next step was going to be, so he secured an interview with Patterson Dental, a dental equipment supplier. In that meeting, one of the interviewers asked Thielen what he'd want to do in life if money was never an issue, and he responded that he wanted to play in the NFL. The interviewer and him laughed, but it wasn't in a mean way, just in the way that many of us have had that dream at one point or another, but it just doesn't work out. So when Thielen told him that he had a tryout with the Vikings coming up, the interviewer was certainly understanding. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Now, while it was exhilarating to get the call to attend rookie camp, Thielen knew he'd have to work harder than anyone else out there just to get a single look from any coach associated with the team. You see, he wasn't there to try and make the team. He was there to try and help out the other rookies the team was actually interested in to make the team. But just being on the field with those players, Adam Thielen gave it everything he had, memorizing the whole playbook in just a few days and living in the moment for every single play. That work would pay off, as by the end of the 3-day camp, the team had bumped another wide receiver that they'd already signed off of the depth chart completely, just to make room for Thielen. It was one of the most rewarding moments of his life, knowing that all of his hard work for months on end had paid off. After calling his family to celebrate, he made a quick call to Patterson Dental to let them know that unfortunately, he wouldn't be able to accept their position. In the Vikings' first preseason game that year, Adam Thielen would finally be able to live out his childhood dream of running out of the tunnel in a Minnesota uniform, and he'd set out to make sure that he'd be running out of that same tunnel for years to come. In the 13th season on the Vikings practice squad, the NFL hadn't even begun to see what Adam Thielen was capable of. The next year would see strong performances in the preseason, earning Thielen a spot on the Vikes' 53-man roster, and though he didn't get much playing time on offense, he made the most of opportunities given, most of which came on special teams. He'd make his name as a coverage specialist, named an All-Pro as a member of the special teams unit. He'd continue to build on that prowess in the following season as one of the scrappiest players on the team, and he'd be named Vikings Special Teams Player of the Year following his 2015 campaign. But in the following season, Adam Thielen would finally get his break to step into the spotlight as a wide receiver, the position he played for his whole life. In Week 5, with the Vikings' up-and-coming star Stephon Diggs sidelined with a groin injury, Thielen had an opportunity to step into a starting role. And after working for this moment his entire life, he was not about to waste it. He'd put the NFL on notice with 7 catches for 127 yards and a touchdown, effectively forcing himself into a larger role on the offense. Later in the year, he'd post a massive 202 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Green Bay Packers, and he'd finish the regular season with a career-high 967 yards through the air. That season, Thielen and Diggs would be the first Vikings receivers to accumulate 900 yards each since Cris Carter and Randy Moss did it, the same players Adam Thielen wanted to be, playing in his backyard all those years ago. All of his work would pay off the following season, literally, as Thielen would sign a 3-year deal with the team, giving him a secure role within the Vikings' passing attack. His skill set was becoming more fine-tuned, a unique blend of route running, quickness, and knowledge of the precise little things that make a receiver great, like knowing how to adjust to outside and inside leverages and being able to come out of breaks to be in the perfect position to catch the ball in space. This bag of tricks wouldn't take long to show up in games either, as in Week 1, Thielen would post 157 yards on 9 catches, and that would only be the first of many explosive performances. Later in the year, he'd have other monster days of 166 yards and 129 yards with a touchdown in each. He'd surpass 1,000 yards for the first time in his career in just Week 12 of that season, making him the first Vikings receiver to do so since 2009. With his 1,276 yards on the season leading the team, Thielen would end 2017 as the 36th ranked player in the NFL's yearly top 100, placing him 6th on the list among wide receivers. Not only was Thielen one of the best on the Vikings, but he'd risen to become one of the best in the entire league. But with the path that Adam Thielen has taken to get to his position in the NFL, there will never be a time where he feels that he's proven himself enough. After pushing himself harder than ever before in the offseason, Thielen began his 2018 campaign with a set of performances that would land him in the NFL history books. New quarterback Kirk Cousins quickly established Thielen as his go-to target, posting over 100 yards in his first 3 games. He was leading the league in receiving yards, and it was looking like Thielen had officially arrived. But then, that streak just didn't end. Week 4, 135 yards. Week 5, 116 yards. Week 6, 123 yards. Week 7, 110 yards. Week 8, 103 yards. By the time he had a game without 100 receiving yards on the day, Adam Thielen had established an NFL record for most 100-yard games to begin an NFL season, and tie Calvin Johnson for the most consecutive 100-yard games in all of NFL history. His natural talent for being able to work the slot and get open no matter what situation made him a perfect fit alongside Stephon Diggs, who as a skilled outside receiver in his own right benefited from Thielen's success and helped out in giving opportunities to him. The tandem quickly became one of the most feared receiving duos in the NFL, and would generate many sleepless nights from defensive coordinators trying to find an answer. Eventually though, they would find an answer, and Thielen's hot streak would snap and his overall production would dip. Other teams began to realize just how heavily offensive coordinator John DeFilippo was keying in on the pass game, and thus were able to implement plans to limit the effectiveness of the Vikings' receiving stars. Nevertheless, Adam Thielen would finish 2018 with 113 catches for 1,375 yards and 9 touchdowns on the season, good for his second Pro Bowl nod at wide receiver. With that said, Adam Thielen is probably far from done in his NFL career, and though he's emerged as a top talent, there's still a lot for him to prove in order to be placed with the other perennially dominant receivers in the league. But at the end of the day, nothing could ever take away from the fact that Adam Thielen overcame all the odds to become a star walk-on player for his childhood team. And I'm pretty sure that if you had to ask him to do it all again, I sincerely doubt that he would have chosen instead to become a dental sales intern.
Oh, look at the cameras. Do you have your pen to sign?
Signature. Yeah.
Okay, now we just got initial. Sign.
Cheese.
15. There's a lot of cheeses.
You sign it? Oh. Okay, right here. Here's your signature.
Hey,
Nice
actually, can I get a handshake?
Wait, do a handshake.
Can I do a handshake?
That's awesome.